Nipsey's passing has consistently been clouded by conflict and unresolved mysteries. However, now after years of staying quiet, Snoop is at last breaking his silence in the courtroom.
Because I know the truth. Ain't none of you just put me on the set, and ain't none of you gonna kick me off.
Rumors are circulating that Snoop just informed on BigU and even revealed his own involvement in the killing. However, the real bombshell is what motivated him to finally speak up. Now, let me lay it all out for you. Snoop's confession that nobody anticipated. The entire courtroom fell into dead silence when Snoop Dogg revealed information that absolutely no one expected. Standing before shocked witnesses, Snoop didn't simply acknowledge his past associations. He took it much further, calling out one of the most intimidating figures in Los Angeles street culture, BigU. That's right, you heard correctly. In a stunning development, Snoop's own testimony connected BigU to the controversial conspiracy theory surrounding Nipsey Hussle's devastating death. And as if that wasn't mind-blowing enough, the manner in which he presented everything has people in the know quietly using the word nobody ever imagined would be associated with Snoop Dogg, informant. Let's take a step back for a moment. Nipsey Hussle wasn't simply another artist. He was Crenshaw's champion, someone who leveraged his influence to empower his neighborhood while maintaining deep ties to the streets that shaped him. However, his passing in March 2019 wasn't merely devastating. It triggered a massive wave of speculation, accusations, and conspiracy theories. Some suggested it stemmed from a street conflict. Others believed more powerful forces were involved. And one name that kept coming up repeatedly, BigU, Nipsey's former manager and someone whose standing in Los Angeles commands both admiration and intimidation. To grasp why Snoop Dogg's courtroom testimony resonated so powerfully, you have to comprehend BigU's involvement in all of this. He wasn't simply an outsider. He wasn't merely a guide. He was intricately woven into Nipsey's ascent and later into the tensions that emerged with success and territorial issues. Now, jump ahead to Snoop. For generations, he's been far more than an artist. He's been a cultural icon, an entrepreneur, an international phenomenon. But don't get it twisted. His foundation is in Long Beach, in the Crip organization, in the hood. That means when he addresses a situation like this, everyone pays attention. And that's precisely what occurred when Snoop entered the witness stand. In deliberately chosen language, he acknowledged his previous wrongdoings. He expressed remorse not only to the court, but to the loved ones, the supporters, and to Nipsey's legacy. But then arrived the moment that left everyone paralyzed in shock. According to numerous reports of the testimony, Snoop pointed specifically at BigU's involvement in fostering the circumstances that resulted in Nipsey's death. For countless people, that came across less like an apology and more like assisting the prosecution. And in street code, assistance carries one harsh designation: cooperating with authorities. But here's where things get absolutely crazy. These courtroom statements weren't existing in isolation. They aligned with rumors we've been catching wind of for years. From Nip's inner circle to BigU's own recorded statements. Just check out this disturbing audio from one of Nip's closest associates who witnessed the day Nipsey was shot down.
Were you there that day?
Yes, I was. Guy rolled up, Nipsey's out hanging, signing autographs or whatever. Guy rolled up. I don't know what his intentions was. As I replay it, I just replayed over and over. And I wish I could have done something differently. I wish I'd have never left his side.
That genuine anguish straight from someone who experienced it firsthand establishes why Snoop's testimony carries such gravity. While Nipsey's friend endlessly replayed those events in his mind, Snoop in that courtroom made everyone else confront the haunting question: was BigU involved in the sequence of events that ended Nipsey's life? BigU has never avoided addressing these allegations. In reality, he's tackled them directly in interviews, maintaining that people distorted the truth. However, the streets have long memories. And when Snoop's testimony reinforced those same doubts, it ignited an already burning inferno. Consider this. For years, Snoop has walked a tightrope, promoting peace while calling himself the king of Long Beach, yet still taking verbal shots at anyone questioning his authenticity. But in that courtroom, when everything was on the line, Snoop completely changed course and essentially provided law enforcement exactly what they needed: identities, relationships, background. Let's be honest, this decision carries serious repercussions. In many people's eyes, Snoop just violated a boundary that can never be uncrossed. However, before we explore those consequences deeper, let's focus on something easily forgotten: the human element behind all this. Nipsey Hussle wasn't simply an artist or street figure. He was a parent, a child, someone dreaming of creating lasting wealth for his neighborhood. His friend described how Nipsey never abandoned his community, never turned his back on his origins, even with violence constantly threatening. That's the real heartbreak here. And that's why Snoop's confession and accusations aren't merely spectacle. They're tearing open fresh injuries. Because if Snoop speaks honestly, then BigU's involvement is far more questionable than anyone dared acknowledge. And if Snoop exaggerated or worse, lied to protect himself, then he just ignited flames that could consume his entire reputation. Either path leads to explosive consequences. When Snoop entered that courtroom, most anticipated a show. They expected him to display the same charm he's projected for 3 decades, captivate everyone, and leave unscathed. Initially, that's exactly how it appeared. His tone softened, his demeanor humble, and he began with something nobody expected from him in years, an admission of guilt. He discussed his past, the destruction that spread from his music, his language, his influence. He acknowledged how romanticizing gang culture helped fuel violence that damaged Los Angeles for generations. It sounded like resolution, as if he'd finally decided to abandon Snoop Dogg the gangster and reveal himself as Snoop Dogg the wise elder. But what came next wasn't resolution, it was devastation. After the apology arrived the accusations, and the identity that the courtroom silence became overwhelming. This wasn't just Snoop apologizing. He was assigning responsibility not to some stranger or outsider, but to someone from within the circle. People living by street principles instantly recognized what just occurred. To outsiders, it might seem like Snoop simply spoke his truth. But to those understanding the rules, what Snoop did was infinitely more hazardous. He entered testimony territory. He shattered the sacred rule: no names, no cooperation, no brotherhood betrayal, regardless of flaws. Why does that label carry such devastating power? Because in Los Angeles, especially in neighborhoods that produced both Nipsey Hussle and Snoop Dogg, reputation means everything. You can possess wealth and celebrity status, but without credibility, you're worthless. The streets operate on respect, and respect cannot survive alongside cooperation with authorities. That's why Snoop's statement didn't register as mere apology. It detonated like an atomic weapon. BigU's significance to Nipsey makes his name so explosive. During Nip's formative years, BigU wasn't merely management. He represented the connection between streets and entertainment industry, providing security, direction, and legitimacy. But relationships forged in that environment are never straightforward. They blend guidance, authority, affection, and intimidation. When Nipsey evolved beyond street life, establishing himself as entrepreneur, investor, and forward thinker, friction naturally developed. Nipsey no longer required street protection the same way. His independence became both his power and his vulnerability. That distance between him and BigU created fertile ground for speculation. When Nipsey was murdered, those rumors exploded uncontrollably. Some believed it was simply the devastating action of someone driven by envy. Others whispered about deeper treachery, about calculated moves and power struggles that created conditions for his death. BigU's identity circulated not from proof, but from suspicion, from the harsh reality that in street culture, people often believe betrayal comes not from enemies, but from hands once trusted. BigU has consistently responded to these accusations, though his statements reveal how heavily the allegations burden him. He rejects the entire premise, redirecting by claiming the killer wasn't genuinely family, never truly belonged. It's his method of distancing himself from implications, essentially declaring "don't blame me, don't blame us," because the shooter was never really part of the inner circle. Yet despite BigU's denials, suspicions persist. And when Snoop Dogg of all people validates that suspicion in court testimony, it doesn't just linger, it solidifies. Snoop's accusation gains weight from the complicated relationship between BigU and Nipsey, which BigU himself admitted wasn't always harmonious. When questioned about conflicts, BigU acknowledged disputes were unavoidable, even between brothers, downplaying one widely discussed incident as merely a family issue. Those words sound protective, but they also emphasize the tension. In street culture, family disputes aren't typical household disagreements. They're explosive and potentially fatal, revealing the volatile mixture of loyalty and competition, where someone you call brother today might become a threat tomorrow. That complexity explains why, despite BigU's persistence, many never stopped questioning if there was more to Nipsey's story than surface appearances suggested. The emotional aftermath extended far beyond that courtroom. Supporters flooded social media, expressing confusion and outrage. Some declared Snoop finally revealed truth, that too many influential figures hide behind silence while communities suffer. Others insisted he'd permanently destroyed his credibility, labeling him hypocritical for claiming street representation while violating the very principles defining that culture. Nipsey's family found themselves trapped in the middle, their personal tragedy constantly replayed through public speculation rather than being allowed to mourn privately. For Los Angeles itself, this moment carried symbolic weight. Nipsey once represented proof the cycle could break, that someone could transcend violence while remaining rooted in their neighborhood. His murder demonstrated the cycle wasn't easily escaped. Now Snoop's testimony proves something else. Even though surviving long enough to become icons cannot escape the code's burden. The streets never forget, never forgive. When the word informant gets whispered, it becomes permanent. Whether you're an unknown hustler or global superstar, the rules remain identical. Once that label attaches, it can destroy you. So the question persists, hanging over the West Coast like approaching thunder. Did Snoop's words permanently alter the narrative, finally forcing culture to address uncomfortable realities about loyalty and betrayal? Or did he simply dig himself deeper, sacrificing credibility for honesty the streets will never forgive? Nipsey Hussle's spirit hovers over that question, his legacy living through music, businesses, and murals covering Los Angeles walls. But his presence also exists in the code itself, in ongoing conversations about loyalty, betrayal, and dangers of speaking names aloud. Until that question gets answered, Nip's memory will haunt not just Snoop Dogg, not just BigU, but the entire city that raised them all. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.